Okay. Okay, good evening. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm really excited to welcome an extraordinary man, an extraordinary thinker and author to the campus of our public, the only public university in Washington, D.C., University of the District of Columbia. Dr. Maccoby is a professor of leadership and has devoted his entire life to the study of leadership and organizations. Has worked with multitudes of organizations worldwide. In Europe, in Sweden, they knighted him for his work with Volvo, gave him a sword and a horse. Anyway, that's a title, a very significant title. He's been recognized by all major schools. He just came back from Oxford, and he only publishes, as I had you read the article, in Harvard Business Review, and he teaches at Oxford, and I stress that he only comes to University of the District of Columbia, our school. So thank you for that, Dr. Maccoby. He's a native Washingtonian. He lives right around the campus, and really a wonderful person. Let me tell you how Dr. Maccoby has started, and I just brought a few books by Dr. Maccoby. He's written many books. One of his books is The Gamesman, that Dr. Maccoby published in the 1970s, I believe 1976, which made him extraordinarily famous. I took this book from GW, from my advisor. I accidentally borrowed it and forgot to return. So, and it's one of the most, that's how Dr. Maccoby has started. Some of his books, he only writes about the subject, he studies leaders and leadership, works with CEOs, politicians, various thinkers, and his entire, about 30, 40, 50 years of his life, all he did is working on the concept of leadership. His other book, which is very famous, and I used to have it in our class, called Productive Narcissist, which later became another book called The Leaders We Need. And today, Dr. Maccoby has published his recently book that he is unveiling called Strategic Intelligence, Conceptual Tools for Leading Change. Congratulations with that. I think it's like one of the culminations of Dr. Maccoby's 40 or 50-year research into the quest of leadership. And he is also doing a revision of this book. Now, with that, Dr. Maccoby, thank you for coming to our campus and share the ideas with our students. And the class really is yours.
Thank you. Where I'm supposed to stand?
Anywhere in front of this board is fine. The other one will blind you.
Well, I'm going to talk to you today about how we answer 4 questions. First one is, what is leadership as opposed to management? And what kind of leaders do we need for positive change today? Second, why is it so difficult to be an effective leader? Third, can leadership really be taught? What are the results of all the leadership training programs? Billions of dollars are spent in the United States on leadership training. What are the results? And fourth, what are the qualities that we really need today in leaders, and how can they be developed? So first of all, there is a lot of argument about defining leadership. There are hundreds of definitions. People continually make them. I think there are 2 reasons why there's so much confusion. Number one is there really are very different kinds of leaders. There's not one kind of leader. Number 2, there are 2 meanings of good. If we say someone there is good leadership, there are 2 different meanings. One meaning is effective, and the other meaning is morally good. So you could say Hitler was an effective leader. He was a good leader from an effective point of view. from a moral point of view, is a monster. So a good leader from a moral point of view would be somebody like Mandela or Lincoln. These are good leaders morally. So this gets confused, this difference. Furthermore, a lot of the definitions that experts give don't really justify leadership, or they are not adequate. For example, Warren Bennis, one of the most famous writers on leadership, said, leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. But that's also true of gardeners. It's true of a good carpenter. So really, I mean, a leader may do that, but it's not a definition just for leaders. Bill Gates, leaders are those who empower others. Yeah, but some leaders disempower people. Dictators, not empowering people. Napoleon, the leader is a dealer in hope. Well, so is a drug dealer or a bookie. So we look at all these definitions. They don't really hold up. I think the one definition that holds up is a leader is someone with followers. If you have followers, you are a leader. If nobody follows you, you could be at the top of an organization, you're not a leader. Nobody's following. So a leader, that sounds very simple, but it's not so simple when you think of why is somebody following you? How are they following you? Are they following you out of fear, or are they following you because they believe in what you're saying? And if we look at that definition, we could say leadership is a relationship in a context. Because you can be a leader in one context and not in another. People can follow you in one context, but they don't follow you in another context. Winston Churchill was the indispensable leader of Great Britain in World War II. He was rejected by the British public both before and after the war. Same qualities, same abilities. Why was he rejected? Because before the war, he was saying we've got to rearm to fight Hitler. And the British public didn't believe in war. They thought they could have peace. They thought he was a warmonger. After the war, Churchill wanted to keep the British Empire going, and the British public was tired. They were broke. They wanted to turn their attention internally to socialism and rejected this imperialistic aristocrat. But you can see it. You can see a lot of people. There are a lot of people in Silicon Valley who are entrepreneurs. They start a company. They're great leaders. But once the company gets large, they can't lead anymore. They're too controlling. They want to control everything. That's what happened to Steve Jobs at Apple. First time he was CEO, he was thrown out because he tried to control everything. He learned, though. He learned he needed partners. Came back and brought in Tim Cook and Joni Ives and created a leadership partnership, tremendously successful. So we have to think of leadership as a relationship in a context. And we have to look at organizations not in terms of a leader, but often a leadership team who are working together. So what kind of leaders do we need? We need leaders who can create collaborators, not followers. People who can create, people who agree, who are sign on to the vision, to what they're trying to achieve, and work with them. Now, what about management? Management is very different from leadership. Management has to do with processes. Getting, like hiring, evaluating, budgeting, and in many, there are companies now where work teams do all that. You don't even need a manager. You need management. You don't necessarily need managers. Managers can give away their functions. A leader cannot give away his relationships. If you're following me because you believe in me, I can't say, now he's the leader. Can't give it away. Management, I can train someone, I can give it away, I can have a team do it. General Electric has a factory in North Carolina where all the management's done by teams. They make engines for Boeing. The only manager in the whole company has the role of marketing and relationships with Boeing. And now I'm reading they're developing computers who can do all the management. So in the future, you may not need any managers, but you're going to need leaders. Because the more complex organizations get, without leaders, there's no direction, there's no trust, there's no purpose, there are no values being held. Now, why is leadership so difficult? We look at today national leaders. Obama can't get 50% support, nor can Cameron in UK. In France, Hollande is at 20%. Merkel in Germany is an exception. But she's under attack right now because she wants to bring in more refugees, and the German public is beginning to rebel against that. I mean, the only person in Europe has high ratings is Putin. And it's very different from the others about why he's getting them. I'm sure if some pollster came around and said, "Do you support President Putin?" a lot of people are going to say, "Of course." Because if they don't know who's going to come around next. Now, but if we look at history, human history, you go back to the hunter-gatherers, the only leaders they had were for a particular purpose, like a hunting party or a war party. And once that was over, the person had to stop being a leader. If somebody tried to continue to be a leader, they were ostracized from the tribe. So human beings have even though we may need leaders in complex organizations, people are not all that happy to have leaders tell you what to do. Because much more natural desire to not have leaders. I worked in studying a Mexican village, a peasant village, and they didn't like any leaders. They didn't like leaders. They thought they were all corrupt. One of them said, they come here, all these political leaders, they come here and say to us, everything we do is for you. For you.
That's true.
So in this Mexican village, it was only during the Mexican Revolution where the peasants were threatened. They hired Emiliano Zapata as their leader because they needed protection, not because they needed always in peacetime to have a leader. So we have to look at the fact that it's not so easy to be a leader in the real sense of people wanting to follow you. It's not easy. You can put somebody in a position of power, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a leader. So, can leadership be taught? What's the results of leadership training? Well, McKinsey, the big international consultancy, did a study where they interviewed hundreds of CEOs about leadership training. 2/3 said it was useless. It was a waste of money. 2/3. It's $1 billion industry. I think it's about $140 billion, United States. Why? Why is it such a disaster? Well, let me start out. I think to start out, a lot of people who go to leadership training don't really want to be leaders. One friend of mine from MIT went to leadership training, he said, you know, I like working with hardware and software, but I don't like working with wetware. So, I mean, there are a lot of people who don't really want to be leaders, don't really want to deal with people, don't really want to respond to people, but they have to get their ticket punched. They have to go to leadership training. They get a certificate, particularly if they go to a prestigious university. I mean, I've been teaching for 12 years at Oxford, and I don't know whether people there say they want to be leaders, but I'm often skeptical. Second, really to be a leader that people want to follow, you really need 3 qualities to start with. Then you can develop them. And those 3 qualities are purpose, passion to realize that purpose, and courage. Courage, as Samuel Johnson, the British writer in the 17th century, wrote the first dictionary, and he wrote, courage is probably the most important quality, because if you don't have courage, you probably can't use any of the others. So if you don't have those 3 qualities to begin with, it's not likely you're going to be a leader. Who will trust someone without courage?
Nobody.
Anybody here trust someone without courage? No. So that's number 1. Number 2 has to do with the actual training. And McKinsey says, and I agree with him, most of this leadership training, they overlook context. Remember, I've pointed out, leadership is a relationship in a context. Well, most of this training ignores context. It's really looking at it often looks how to listen, how to have emotional intelligence, how to know yourself. Fine, that's fine, but it's not leadership. So if you overlook the person's organization, their role, type of leader, I've found in large organizations 3 different types of leaders with different types of personality. There are strategic leaders, tend to be visionary. Many are productive narcissists. These are the people like Jeff Bezos of Amazon, or Elon Musk, or Steve Jobs. These are people who want to change the world. It can be grandiose, so if they're smart, they work with the other 2 types. Second, operational leaders. They tend to be more straightforward, exacting, tend a little bit obsessive. They like to make things work. They're looking at the processes. They're making sure that this vision gets worked through. This is true, by the way, in government, too. It's just had a meeting of a lot of leaders in this government about how we can make government work more what they call enterprise government. In other words, get people working across disciplines together, focused on problems rather than in silos. And the 3rd type of leader that's needed is a network leader. And that's the kind of person who can get people to work together, who can work out conflict, who can make people cooperate, collaborate. I saw Ford, for example, had a leader like that when they produced the Taurus, which was at the time the best-selling Ford car. In the past, they would have these silos, so you would have somebody designing the car, and then you'd have a design engineer who would argue with the designer, and it would go to production engineer who would argue with the design engineer and the designers. It took years, back and forth and so on. Once they had a network leader, Lou Veraldi was his name, he got all these people together to work it through interactively. And the result was a very successful car in a very shortened time period. But you need that all in many organizations today. IBM tries to do that, bringing together the people who look at the problem, more like consultants, and the hardware people, the software people, all working together cooperatively with the customer. So you need these three types with very different personalities. The network leader is much more an interactive, helpful type personality, as opposed to the operation leader, much more focused, obsessive in a way, and the visionary leader. But they have to work together in an organization. So, you know, if you want to be a leader, you ask yourself, what kind of leader would I be? Second of all, these programs are decoupled from real work. So people go into these programs and they get somebody's view of what a leader should be and culture should be. They go back to their own organization and they're in conflict. So the program could be actually destructive. And third, they really don't teach people to understand the people they're leading. They don't understand their personality, or their mindset, or how to deal with resistance, which is always there. In any innovative leader is going to have resistance. How do you deal with it? How do you understand it? None of that. So what are these programs about? They're really about personal growth at best. And at worst, they're about giving people ideas and so on that are going to cause them trouble. So, the new book, Strategic Intelligence, is based on my experience of what a leadership team needs to develop to be effective today in our modern technically based organizations. And that includes qualities, foresight, the ability to understand the trends that are going to be the opportunities or the threats to the organization. Second, visioning, the ability to see what you need to do to take advantage of new opportunities, what you need to create. Three, partnering, crucial. As I've said, you have to partner with different kinds of leaders, but also partnering outside of the company with your suppliers, with big customers. Partnering becomes an extremely important quality. And finally, engaging and motivating people. Now, to be able to do this, you also need two other important elements. One is a philosophy. All of the best leaders I have seen develop a conscious organizational leadership philosophy. That includes the purpose of the organization, the practical values essential to achieve that purpose, the level of ethical and moral reasoning that will determine decision making, and fourth, the kind of measurements that support the purpose and the values. I first learned this interviewing Bill Hewlett of Hewlett-Packard in the early 70s. I asked him, what is the purpose of HP? He said, the purpose of HP is to make products that help technical people do their job better. He didn't say to make money. He said to make products that help technical people do their job better. And I said, what do you need? What do you need to do this? He said, we have certain values. First of all, excellence. We want all our engineers to be with the latest knowledge, understanding, and technology, engineering, and we will pay for them to go back to Stanford Engineering School, take courses. Second, collaboration, cooperation, starting with the customer. We go out to find out what technical people need. Come back to Palo Alto, and the developer, who's also been the one going out to the customer, works together with manufacturing and marketing as a team to create the product. Third, we want loyalty. And that means we have no layoffs. If we have a downturn in business, everyone takes a cut in salary of 20%, starting with me. And fourth, we want innovation. We want entrepreneurial people. I said, but Bill, if you have entrepreneurial people, aren't they going to go off and start their own company? He said, yes, of course. But because we've treated them so well, they're going to be our customers and our suppliers. And that was the beginning of Silicon Valley. Apple came out of that, others, great companies, came out of that philosophy. It's number one, philosophy. We all have philosophies, but most people are unconscious of your philosophy. Most people have a philosophy, their purpose is they're just programmed in childhood, do well on tests, get ahead, get secure, get married, have children. But people who create things make their philosophy conscious. They develop a philosophy. They can be trusted because they stick to a philosophy. And second of all, leadership team needs profound knowledge. There's a concept of W. Edwards Deming. In this book, I include chapters based on my conversations I had with Deming. 3 years. He liked the book I wrote, Why Work. He liked what I wrote about motivation and leadership, and invited me to talk with him, and for 3 years we talked regularly. He was 90 years old, and he took notes. I was taking notes, and he was taking notes. Profound knowledge has to do with four things. First of all, knowledge of variation, statistics, knowing the difference between special causes and common causes. How many of you here know the difference between special causes and common causes? Well, it's crucial. It's crucial. If you have a defect in a process, the question is that due to the whole system being faulty, which would be a common cause? Or is it true just because one person made a mistake or just one thing happened? That's a special cause. And what I have found as I've looked at factories is that one of the reasons that Toyota was such a great success, has been such a great success, is it always looks for the common cause, even working with its suppliers. While most companies have traditionally just looked at special cause. What's the problem here? We'll fix it even if it costs more. When Toyota fixes a common cause problem, it ends up not only improving quality but lowering cost. So that's number one. Number two is systems thinking. Crucial, and it's probably the biggest gap today in training for management and leadership. A system is a set of qualities that interact to further a purpose. No part of a system, no quality, can be evaluated by itself. only in terms of how well it interacts with other qualities to further the purpose of the system. Now, Russell Acuff, who I also have a chapter on, who I also not only learned from, but I worked with, he invited me to work together with him in projects in Canadian Pacific and others. Acuff described three kinds of systems. One is a mechanical system. Now, that's the kind of system you can design, like a car. But think about it. Suppose I was to ask you, different people, to find the best car parts in the world. And you brought me something from a Mercedes. You brought me something from a Lexus. And you brought me something from a Ferrari. What would we have? What would we have? Junk. Junk. Because it's not the best parts of a system, it's the parts that work together interactively. And many organizations don't understand that. They say, we're going to have the best marketing department, and the best HR department, and the best manufacturing. That's what happened with HP when it merged with Compaq. Carly Fiorina is now trying to run for president. She said, let's get the best parts of both companies. It was a disaster. Wait till she gets a hold of the US government. Second kind of system is an organic system, like the human body, where genetically the parts are formed to work together to serve the purpose of life. But the third kind of system is a social system, like an organization, where the parts, many of the parts, have purposes of their own. They're people, they're us. So one of the key roles of leadership is creating a common purpose with people, all of whom have different purposes. And that's why philosophy and living it is so crucial to any kind of leadership. Third is understanding personality. Understanding the people you lead. And fourth is understanding how to create knowledge, which Deming developed the Shewhart cycle, ways of continuous improvement in an organization and creating new knowledge and testing it. So we have to put all this is strategic intelligence, what this book is about. And this book is a very practical book because it's full of exercises. Probably the most practical book I ever wrote. Because I wrote it as not only to describe these qualities, but also help people actually develop them. So I want to just end with I want to end to talking a little bit about engagement and motivation. The Gallup study showed that fewer than 1/3 of people in this country are engaged in their work. And it's even fewer in other countries. Now, somebody said to me, so what? So what if they're not engaged? They do the work, so what? Well, so what is, you're not going to have any innovation. You're not going to have anybody caring or really developing the organization. Now the question is, how do you engage people at work? And my view of this is all of the motivational theories people learn are wrong. There are usually two kinds of theories. One are hard theories, motivating by money or promotion or whatever. Now we know that money only motivates people who hate their work and motivate people on the assembly line. But will it motivate a teacher to teach better? If you're paid more, you're going to suddenly become a better teacher?
Yes, please. More cash follow. Absolutely.
Is it going to make a doctor treat you better if you pay the doctor more? You think so? Well, I wouldn't go to that doctor. So money, you know, I mean, this goes back to, I learned this in the 1950s. There was a study by Harry Harlow, a psychologist at University of Wisconsin. And Harlow trained monkeys, gave them a problem to solve. It's kind of opening of doors and so on. The monkeys seemed to like doing the problem, solving the problem. So then Harlow gave them bananas if they got it right. You know what happened? Their performance got worse. Got worse, because they were thinking about the bananas, not the problem. So, you know, money can make you take this job rather than that job. Money, if you don't get a fair pay, you can turn off, you can be resentful, but it doesn't motivate people in any kind of knowledge job. Then the other theories are soft theories. Be a caring boss. Well, all the studies show that if you have a caring boss, you're very happy, but you don't work hard. You may even work less because you know the boss is not going to be mean. So really, what motivates? Well, first of all, we have to understand everyone has intrinsic motivation. We all are motivated. I mean, nobody has to tell somebody who loves to play tennis to get motivated. They're motivated. Nobody has to tell somebody who loves to paint, we're gonna pay you if you paint, make a painting. We're all motivated. So the question is, how do you engage people's intrinsic motivation in the workplace? That is the challenge. And what I see are what I call the 5 R's. And these 5 R's are the elements that will bring out, engage intrinsic motivation.
Elements
And
of,
for some people, one of the R's are more important than the others. I could put them up.
You can write it.
I
if you
write
want.
it?
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Just.
Okay, the first R, reasons. People are motivated when they're doing something that's worthwhile, that they think is important. You know, in World War II, people on the assembly line, normally people working on the assembly line are not hugely motivated. But during the war, if they were assembling a tank, women on the line assembling it were highly motivated because they were helping to win the war. So many people are motivated. The reasons, are we helping people? Are we doing something that's going to make the world better? Second, responsibility. We're motivated when our job is to do things that we really feel confident to do. I mean, if we really like to build things, a job where we're building something. If we like to teach, a job where we're teaching. Healthcare people are motivated by helping people, by the actual responsibility of the job. Third, recognition. We all want to be recognized for what we actually contribute. And when people are recognized, when achievements are recognized, people become more motivated. When the boss takes credit for what you do, we're demotivated. Fourth, rewards. And it's not just money. Rewards can be having opportunities to learn more, being able to go to meetings, developing new skills.
What about promotion? Promotion?
What was that?
Promotions.
Promotion.
Promotion.
Promotions as a reward, yeah. I mean, there's many different kinds of rewards are possible. And they should reinforce what you want. One of the things I know, I visited Toyota plant in Japan, in Nagoya, and they give 20% of the salary of workers on the assembly line based on whether that person helps others, creates harmony. So they're reinforcing the qualities they want in leadership so that they know who they can promote to be a foreman next. Not the best worker, but somebody who's a leader. They're reinforcing that. And finally, very important, relationships. We're all motivated by good relationships, not just with the boss, co-workers, could be with your customers, could be with others, can be crucial. I first learned this, I was working with AT&T and the union, communications workers. There was a business service center, and one of the service technicians, union member, controlled a $50 million account all by herself. The customer would not deal with anyone else, wouldn't deal with the account executive, wouldn't deal with management, only with Penny. And I said to her, Penny, can you do this? She said, well, I'm better on some things than others. What do you do about the others? Well, Annie here helps me. We work together. Do you need a manager at all? Oh yeah, sure, I need to know the new products, I need to know the pricing. But her motivation was working with the customer, and they really enjoyed working with her. She was invited to their meetings, etc. So look at these 5 R's. Now let me ask each of you, rank order these 5 R's for yourself. What most motivates you of all these 5? Put them in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Importance. You too.
I did.
I did.
Let me, how many put, you ready? How many put reasons first? Second, how many put responsibilities first? A lot. Second, how many put recognition first? Second, how many put rewards first? Nobody. 1. 2. I have found, I've done this by the way with hundreds of executives and technical people. I found only 7% put rewards first.
Wow.
How many?
Relationships. How many put relation? Oh, very high. Second. Very high. So, you know what I've come out with here for this group, it's responsibilities and relationships that are the key to motivation. It's really being the challenges that really engage what you want to do, what you like to do, what you're confident in doing, and good relationships with each other. I don't know, maybe with Sergey. You know, I'll end on that note, because this is the kind of thing they're not teaching, I have to tell you. I've been around a long, long time, and I think I now have the right to say that all the leadership knowledge you're getting is misleading, and all the studies of motivation you're getting is misleading. You can forget both.
And that's a leadership class, Dr. Maccoby, so thank you very much. Great. The class dismissed. No, questions? If you have time for questions?
You know, it made me think, my father took a course on values with a professor many years ago. And at the end of the course, one of the students said to the professor, you've done away with everything we believed in. What have you left in its place? And his answer was, and what did Hercules leave in its place when he cleaned out the Aegean stables? It was full of horsemen.
Questions?
So,
I have a couple.
Okay, speak loud. If you ask a question, please speak loudly.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for coming and talking to us here at the university. I have a couple of questions. So
Yeah.
the first one is.
I have to get close because I can't hear.
Speak loud.
Okay. So you focus a lot on personality when you study leadership. In terms of introvert and extrovert, do you think that introverts will be bad leaders just because most of them lack courage?
Well, I don't think most of them, I don't know whether there's any studies whether introverts or extroverts have more courage, but there's no real evidence that I see that that makes such a big difference there. You know, the big five are the 5 traits in psychology that have been shown to be related to genetics. There is a book that came out about a couple of years ago called Born Together, Reared Separately. And it was a study of identical twins who were reared in different families. And they showed that about 70% of these 5 were similar, identical. Or maybe it was less, but it was over 50%. And those traits include curiosity, conscientiousness, amiability, resilience, the ability to bounce back versus being very easily kind of floored by problems more. And then 5th was introvert, extrovert. And I could see all the other 4 being related to leadership. I mean, I think if you're born to be curious, amiable, conscientious, resilient, you're more likely to develop leadership. But I don't see introvert, extrovert.
Questions? Aliyah? 1 second.
Could you get the question?
Okay, you have to speak loud, guys.
I won't be able to hear it.
In our digital age, do you believe the old theories of leadership still fit, such as the impact of social media or the behavior of young people, especially in work environment?
Could you repeat that?
Say it loud again. I couldn't. I can. Go ahead.
Can I come? Or?
Yeah, you can come. Okay, she'll come. I couldn't hear that. Okay, so next question, just line up out there. Come this way, Aliyah, this way. So next question, line up at that door.
Hey, you have to tell me close.
So, in our digital age,
do you believe the old theories of leadership still fit, such as the impact of social media or behavior of young people, especially in the work environment?
Do I believe what?
The old theories of leadership still fit?
That leadership is now different? Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, what we're seeing is the important concept of social character. Every society tends to develop young people with the qualities so that they're going to succeed in that culture. So when I worked in a peasant society, children are brought up to be very careful, hardworking, family-focused, distrust outsiders, just trust people within the family, kind of hoarding, rather careful about spending, etc. Because that's what works in a peasant society. When you get to a bureaucratic society, where we have been going through since the late 19th century, people were brought up generally to work in hierarchies. And particularly when I was born, 70% of the families in this country were headed by single male wage earner. So the man represented the world of work and hierarchy, and the woman represented the home and caring, totally different. Social people were brought up totally different. Now today, there are actually more families headed by a single woman than there are those families, those kind of traditional families with a single male wage earner. And most families have two people both working. So children are brought up in a very different way. And they're beginning to see in companies, again, it's much more developing interactive skills, working with each other. Children in very early age go to daycare centers, learn to interact with other kids. They don't look at leadership as a strong man. They look at a leader like a parent who, the parents today come home exhausted, and they're not disciplinarian very much. I mean, the kids know the parents are guilty. They can play the parents' guilt. They can negotiate everything, when they're going to go to bed, what to get, so on. And they see the only thing the parents really care about most is that the children succeed. So they take them to courses and daycare. They take them to play dates and so on. So they begin to look at their parents as service providers. So when they get to work, they look at managers. What's he doing for me? What's she doing for me? Now, the kind of transferential attitude is not looking for a good father, but looking for somebody who helps people succeed, cares about their development. That's the ideal. Though women have a particular problem, because very often I find women leaders are looked at as they're either supposed to be good mothers or they're going to be a wicked witch. And very often I've seen women in leadership positions who tell me that their employees think they're supposed to be motherly. And I mean, there's no reason why they should be. So they have can be a particular problem. But indeed, not only have kind of leadership needed change, but the people who are being led have changed. They're no longer the same kind of people looking up to a father figure and trying to be like the father figure. They are now much more often much more relationship with their colleagues, with their co-workers, and they're looking at leadership in terms of how well they do things for us, how well they succeed. It was very, even, I was in Beijing, and I was interviewing some engineers about leadership. And in traditional Chinese, which you still find in Taipei or Singapore, they still look at a leader, they want more of a Confucian teacher figure who they're loyal to and teaches them. In Beijing, I asked somebody, what's a good leader? So it'd be like a good basketball coach. He knows where to put people, what their skills are, how to get them to work together, how to change strategy if the other team is winning, or totally different from the Confucian ideal. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Andreas. Thank you for coming to speak with us. You made some wonderful points that were really helpful. And you also mentioned relationships. So my question is, how do you form great relationships even when there's a large number of people? So if I was working with this team of people that were in the front row, I would be able to get to know about their families, what they like and don't like. But if I was working with this whole classroom, there would be like some limitations. So how do I still form a good, solid relationship with a large team as opposed to just a small?
That's a good question. And, you know, it makes me think of something that happened at the University of Maryland a few years ago. The soccer team was losing. And so the coach had a brilliant idea. He asked all the team members to say, who would you go to on the team if you had a problem? Who would you trust to help you? And everybody pointed to one person. And he made him the captain. And they won the championship that year.
Oh, wow.
So part of it is not trying to make a relation with everyone, but help the team, the group, relate to each other better. And then they'll relate to you too.
Okay, very good. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Maccoby. Yeah, with that, class is over. Thank you, everybody.